A very good morning to all the students of class 11th. And students, as you know, we had started the new topic, that is election and representation, and we had finished the first part of this topic. And in that first part we had talked about election and democracy, where we saw a close relationship and close connectivity between these two political phenomena if we talk about the election system or the representation in India. So by tackling those two topics, we had seen basic two important questions which are put forward. The first question was, can we have democracy without holding elections? And the other question was, can we hold elections without having democracy? So we seen the various dimensions of these two questions, and we have discussed in detail. Then we had also seen two type of democracies, and we had seen differentiated both of them, that is direct and indirect democracies. And in the later half we had talked about that how can we ensure democratic elections. Before ending the topic, we were discussing that how can we ensure that there can be true democratic representation in the election system. So in that we talked about that constitution plays a very important role in a democratic country by laying down some basic rules about elections. And those basic rules are such as the who is eligible to vote, who is eligible to contest elections, or who is to supervise election, or which is an independent body like election commission who is going to look after the elections or supervise it. And the other questions were, how do the voters choose their representatives, what is the method of choosing our own representatives, how we present our preferences, how are the votes to be counted, what is the methods used for the counting of the votes and selecting or electing of our representatives. So all these questions are answered in the constitution, and constitutions lays down all the provisions in relation to the elections, so that there can be a true democratic elections in our country, especially talking of India. So in this part, that is part 2, you can see election system in India. We'll see some introduction part, and then directly we'll start with the topic, that is the first past the post system, which is the election system in India we follow in the general elections of Lok Sabha as well as in the assembly elections, state assemblies election. So this is a very simple procedure or the simple system of elections, but there are some complications and some components and elements which you need to know. So we'll talk about the complete procedure of this system in this video. Okay. And also before I start the topic, I would also like to share with you all, and this topic, that is election system in India. This is very important for all the students of political science, but not only political science. As a citizen of India, everyone must know this system, because when we talk about the election system or the politics in India, it is not only the people who are studying political science or who are into politics, they are included in the this political system or the election system. Each and every citizen has the right to vote. If he or she has the right to vote, they must know about this system, that how our representative or our preferences are being counted, what is the system exactly has been followed. So it's the responsibility also, and it's the duty also, I would say, where everyone should know about this system of election in India, which we follow mainly in the general elections of Lok Sabha and elections of state assemblies. So now we'll continue with this. You can see from NCRT book, you may have seen or read about different methods of electioning and campaigning in the election. You must have seen many in the movies, also documentaries, and nearby areas you must have seen various methods of election, how people behave and how people campaign during the election. But what are different methods of election? But we don't know what are the different methods of election, because commonly around us around us environment, we have just seen a single system of election, and that is only all that in our mind. There is a system of conducting elections. There are authorities. First of all, there are always particular authorities which has been assigned the duty of conducting elections by the constitution. These are the independent authorities like election commission. And rules, and there are certain important rules. Those are do's and don'ts, what we are allowed to do and we are not allowed to don'ts. Is that what election system is all about? Is that election all about that there will be authority, and that authority will provide some rules, that what we can do and what we should not do? So is it all about the election? You may have wondered why the constitution needs to write down how the votes are to be counted. So you must be thinking that why in the constitution everything has been mentioned beforehand, that how the votes are going to be counted and how the representatives are going to be elected. So everything has been mentioned in the constitution already. It's that very obvious people go and vote, because most of you think that it's very obvious that people go and they vote, as you have been seeing nearby your home in your families, that your parents go, they vote their candidate, they give their preference through the right to vote. But the candidate who gets the highest votes get elected. We know this is a simple procedure in India which everybody knows, that whichever candidate gets the highest number of votes is being elected. That is what elections are all over the world, and this is how the elections have been all around the world. But why do we need to think about it then? Why this topic has been added to your syllabus if it was so easy, so simple, that if a person is elected as he has got the highest number of votes, then we need not to study this topic. But we need to study, because this question is not so simple as it appears to us. It appears that it is so simple, that whoever member is getting the highest number of votes, he is elected, his party forms a government if it gets the majority of total votes or the total seats. But it is not so simple. We have to go so used to our system, because we have been so used to our system of election nearby us, that we think that there cannot be any other way, because we think that this is only the way of election and there is no other way of elections around the world. But if we change a single rule of the election, there can be a completely a different result or a different outcome. And in this lecture we'll learn that. Just now you'll not understand, but when we'll see the examples, that how by changing a certain rules there will be a complete transformation in the results or the outcome of the elections. In a democratic election, people vote and their preferences decide who will win the contest. It is obvious, in a democratic country like India, people vote as they have the right to vote, and they show their preference by giving their vote, and the person who gets the highest number of votes is being elected, okay, and win the contest. But there can be very different ways in which people make their choices. It means there can be other methods also through which we show our preferences or we vote. Very different ways in which their preferences can be. There can be the very different methods of counting of votes. These different rules of the games can make the difference to who the winner of the game will be. So it means game here means election. If we change the rules in the election, there can be a complete change that who will win the game. Some rules are going to favor the bigger parties, some rules can help the smaller parties or the smaller players, some rules can favor the majority community, others can protect the minority. So let us look at one of the dramatic instance to see how this happens. So we'll see from an example, we'll take an election from India, and through that example we will try to understand that whatever we are discussing here. So you can see now we are going to start exactly the topic which we were about to study, election system in India. The first system is first past the post system, and before they starting this topic, they have given a newspaper cutting, and this is a newspaper cutting from the newspaper that is Nav Bharat Times. It's a Hindi newspaper, and there is a heading where you can see पहली बार कांग्रेस को 3/4 बहुमत. It means they are talking about the majority, 3/4. So it means in this news, Congress got 3/4 majority. Lot of votes Congress got. So we'll study about this example now. So this newspaper cutting is talking about one of the historic moment in the India's democracy in the Lok Sabha election. So there was a historic moment of the Lok Sabha election of 1984. This was the election which was held in India after the assassination of Indira Gandhi, and the new face was Rajiv Gandhi, the son of Indira Gandhi. He was elected as the Prime Minister of India and leader of Congress party. So during this election of 1984, we saw there was a historic moment, and through this historic moment we will try to understand the first past the post system exactly. So this election becomes important when we have to understand the election system in India. Through this example, we'll show the table also, where the result of the election is declared. and we'll understand through that the system, that is the first past the post system. Here the Congress party came to power winning 415. So in the election of 1984, Congress party won with the 415 seats out of 543. There were total 543 seats in the Lok Sabha, and out of those 543, Congress alone achieved the target of 450, which was around 80% of the seats. If you take out the 80% of 543, 415 is even more than 80% seats. So we can say Congress alone got the 80% seats of the Lok Sabha. It means Congress easily formed their government at the center, because around 272 seats are required to form a government. Okay, and they got around 415. It means it was a government of the Congress, and they achieved around 80% of the seats. Such a victory was never achieved by any party in the Lok Sabha. Till 1984, this type of victory, historic victory, was not achieved by any of the parties, political parties in the Lok Sabha election. Now we'll see what did this election show. What do we understand by this election, and why we are studying this example under the topic first past the post system. We'll try to understand now. Okay. So here, talking of the same election, the Congress party won 4/5 of the seats. Does it mean that 4 out of 5 Indian voters voted for the Congress party? Now they are saying Congress party in the ratio, if you talk about the proportion, 4/5 of the seats. From every 5 seats, 4 seats were of the Congress people, Congress politicians. So does it mean that every voter who was coming to vote voted, out of every 5 voters, 4 were voting for Congress? Is that right? No, actually not. This is not the case. Take a look at the enclosed table. Now we'll look at the table down. The Congress party got 48% of the votes. You can see here now. You'll have to see the results. Okay. Now take a look at the enclosed table. The Congress party got 48%. The Congress party got 48%, and now you have to think here and see the disparity. The votes, 48% of votes Congress got, but they achieved 80% of seats. 415 was around 80% of 543. It means Congress achieved 80% seats from 543, that is 415 seats, but they only got the vote in support of the people of 48%. Not even the 50% of Indians wanted Congress to be in the central government, but still how they achieved to manage to get the 80% of seats. This is how here we start studying about the system, that how these disparities are happening here. Take a look at the enclosed table. The Congress party got 48% of the votes. This means that only 48% of those who voted in the favor of the candidate put up by the Congress party. It means only 48% voters voted for the in support of the Congress party, but the party still managed to win more than 80%. It means they got only 48% vote, but they managed to win 80% of the seat in the Lok Sabha. Look at the performance of other parties. If we look at the performance of the other parties, BJP got 7.4% of votes. Okay, and but they only achieved 2 seats. Here it is all reverse. They got 6.7% of votes, but they achieved 10 seats. So why there is so much of disparity? It is, the answer to this question is because of the election system which we are following in India, that is the first past the post system. Because of this system of election, we see so much of disparity, and now we will discuss that how this system works. And when you will understand how this system works, so then you will be able to understand this chart, this outcome of the result. You will be able to better understand that. So at last it's written BJP got 7.4% vote but less than 1% seat. How did this happen? So this happened because in our country we follow the special method of election. So all the questions, all the disparities which we were studying in this chart, now answer to all those queries you will find it here. Because in our country we follow a special method of election, and that is the first past the post system. And under this system what happens, you have to remember these points. The entire country is divided into 543 constituencies, and you know that in India when elections are held, our country is divided into 543 constituencies. This is a geographical area which is divided, and there are total 543, and from each constituency we elect one member. It means if we elect one member from each constituency, we will get 543 members. Each constituency elects one representatives, and the candidate who secures the highest number of votes in that constituency is declared elected. It is important to note that in this system, whoever has more votes than all other candidates is declared elected. Now I will show you with the help of the example here. This is a rough diagram I have just made you to explain you that how our country is divided into 543 constituencies, and these are the constituencies which are distributed all over our country, and from each constituency we elect one member. It means election will be held in this each constituency, and from each constituency only one member will be elected who will become the MP or the MLA. Okay, we are talking about here Lok Sabha elections, so we will say who will become the MP. And if we take each member from each constituency, it means we'll have 543 members. Now let's see from when we have elections in a particular constituency. So we'll just take an example of one constituency. We are talking about, suppose this constituency, in this constituency there are suppose 1 2 3 4 5 candidates representing their political parties, and party A got 20% votes, party B got 10% votes, party C got 50% votes, party D got 20% vote, and party E got 60% votes. So it is obvious that the party which is getting the maximum votes is being elected. Okay, and it is a very simple procedure. That is why we say that first part, the post system, is very simple. Any person, we do not have to achieve the majority of the votes. We just have to have the highest number of votes within our constituencies. That is, they are in a race where whoever gets the highest number of votes, he will be elected. The winning candidate, whoever the candidate who is winning, who is being elected, need not secure a majority. Majority here means 50 plus 1. That is, if we have 100 seats, we need to get the 50 plus 1. But here in this first part, the post system, we know we need not to get 50 plus 1, that is 51 seats. We just have to get the highest number of votes or the highest number of preferences as compared to the other candidates. This method is called the first past the post system. In the electoral race, the candidate who is ahead of others, who crosses the winning post first of all, is the winner. The method is also called polarity. Why polarity? Because there are many political parties who are contesting in the same election, but the one who gets the highest number of votes is being elected, and it is not necessary to have the majority. Majority means we need not to have the half number of votes compulsorily. Now, after understanding that, let us now go back to our example. Now we'll go back to our since we have understood the method of first past the post system, now we'll go back to our example and we'll implement this procedure to our elections of 1984. The Congress party won greater share of seats than its share of votes. It got greater share of seats. It got around 80% of seats, and it only got 48% of votes. How did it happen? Because in many of the constituencies, because ज़्यादातर क्या होगा, in most of the constituencies in which its candidate won, they secured less than 50%. Because as told you, in this system, first past the post system, it is not necessary for a candidate to get 50% of the votes. If he is getting 25% of the votes but other candidates are getting less than 25, still the candidate having 25% of votes will be elected. It means the same situation must have happened in many of the constituencies where the candidate was elected with around 25 to 30% of votes. Okay, if there are several candidates, the winning candidates often gets much less than 50% of votes. The votes that go to all the losing candidates go wasted. It means if a person got 30% votes and other got 20%, 10%, 5%, other percent of votes get wasted. Suppose a party gets only 25% of votes in every constituency, but everyone else get even less votes. In that case, the party could win all the seats only with 25% votes or even less. So this is the topic which we have covered under first past the post system, and you will have to read it from the NCERT book, and along with that you will also have to see this particular chart, and with this you can understand, because we can see the disparity between the seats and votes. The reason for this is because in first past the post system, it is not important for every candidate to get the 50% of the votes. That is मेजॉरिटी लानी ज़रूरी नहीं होती है इन अ पर्टिकुलर कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी. बस हमको बाकी कैंडिडेट्स को हराना है किसी भी तरीके से. इफ़ आई एम गेटिंग 25% ऑफ वोट्स इन माई कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी, जो मैंने अभी मैप बना के दिखाया था, एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में इलेक्शंस हुए एंड आई गॉट 25% ऑफ वोट्स, बट अदर्स जस्ट गॉट 10%, 15% और 20%. It means as I am having the highest 25%, I will be elected from this constituency. It means this 10, 15 and 20, these votes are being wasted. I was elected just with 25% of votes, so I have got a seat in the Lok Sabha. In the same way, the same situation must have taken place in many constituencies. This is the reason when we are taking the whole idea of the whole country of the elections of 1984, only 48% have voted for Congress, and still they managed to achieve the 415 seats, which is 80% of 543. So this is the disparity, and this is the reason for the disparity, that the system we follow in India, that is the first past the post system. We have the long discussion regarding this system, but when it comes to writing the answers in the exam, then you will have to write a question, subject based question. And first past the post system, this happened because in our country we follow a special method of election. And what you will write under this first past the post system, the entire country is divided into 543 constituencies, which I have told you. Each constituency elects one representative. The candidate who secures the highest, whoever candidate who will secure the highest number of votes in that constituency particular, he or she will be declared as elected. But the thing which we have to keep in mind, the winning candidate is not required to secure a majority. Majority here means 50 plus 1. It is not compulsory for the candidate to get 50 plus 1 votes to be elected. It means he just has to defeat the other candidates. If he is just getting 25 or 30% votes also, and others are getting less than that, it means he will be elected anyhow. It is not compulsory that he has to get the 50% of votes in his constituency. Suppose in his constituency there were 1000 voters, 1000 votes, it is not compulsory for him to get 500 votes. If he gets 250 votes also, but others get only 100, 50 or 70 votes, it means if you have got 250 votes, you will be elected. It is not compulsory that you have to get majority of votes. That is 500 benchmark is not compulsory at all. So that is why it's written, winning candidate is not required to secure a majority seats of the votes. He or she is required just to secure more votes than the other candidates. Now you can relate this with the Lok Sabha election of 1984 as given in the chart in your book. So with this, I'm ending this video. Thank you so much.